morning. My name is Susan Wiseman and I'm one of the Business Development Managers here at Hutchinson Engineering. I speak on behalf of my colleagues when I say it's our pleasure to welcome you to our site today in Widnes. We're able to showcase our unique capabilities. We manufacture high-integrity, specialised steel fabrications. Our steel structures are generally in operation in the most challenging environments. We are proud to supply high-integrity steel fabrications such as the wind turbine towers you see behind me. Our capabilities have a very positive impact around the world, enabling us to contribute to green, sustainable energy that powers our homes and our businesses. Without further ado, it is my great privilege to introduce our Secretary of State for Energy Security and for Net Zero of the UK, Ed Miliband.
Well, thank you so much, Susan. And can I thank all the workforce here and Hutchinson, the management, for welcoming us to this fantastic facility. You are the future of clean energy manufacturing, so thank you for having us here. And I'm delighted to be here with the Prime Minister to set out our plans for Great British Energy. You know, every family and business in the country, every worker here has paid the price of Britain's energy insecurity during the cost of living crisis over the last couple of years. And because we are exposed as a country, independent forecasts show energy bills are expected to rise again in the autumn, showing just how vulnerable we are. But there is an answer. The Climate Change Committee, the independent watchdog, put it very well last week. They said British-based renewable energy is the cheapest and fastest way to reduce vulnerability to global fossil fuel markets. The faster we get off fossil fuels, the more secure we become. They are right. A sprint for clean energy is a route to energy independence because dictators and petrostates don't control it. It's the best insurance policy against the gyrations of fossil fuel markets and another price shock, and the best way to keep bills down for good. Today we introduced the Great British Energy Bill in Parliament, the first bill in decades to establish a UK-wide, publicly owned energy generation company. Now, you may find it hard to believe, but we already have widespread public ownership of our energy in this country, but it's by foreign governments of France, Denmark, Norway and Sweden. These nations know that modern public ownership is part of a successful energy policy and industrial strategy. This government believes it is time for the British people to make things and own things again. GB Energy will be an owner and investor. It will work with the private sector to build the clean energy we need, create good jobs like those here at Hutchinson, and generate a return for the taxpayer, a national champion headquartered in Scotland. Investing in technologies such as wind, tidal, hydrogen, nuclear, carbon capture across the country, scaling up community energy through a local power plan, and ensuring a just transition for our oil and gas communities. And we know we need to act with boldness and imagination to deliver our mission. And so today we're also announcing a historic partnership between Great British Energy and the Crown Estate. This new partnership sees one of our oldest national institutions partnering with our newest to produce 3 weeks into the new government a new body, Great British Energy, the Crown Estate, a lasting institution that will go beyond one term or one government to steward Britain's energy resources for the benefit of the nation, speeding up delivery of clean power, building supply chains, driving investment and delivering jobs. The billions of capitalisation of Great British Energy will help to unlock tens of billions more. Now, we're under no illusions about the scale of the challenges we have inherited, from energy security to the climate crisis, or what it will take to deliver our long-term plan for this country. But in our first weeks, we have shown that this is a government that will act equal to the urgency of our nation's challenges, fulfilling the mandate for change the British people gave us. And now it's my enormous privilege to introduce my friend, the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Susan. That was a fantastic introduction. It's never easy to do it, but you were absolutely fantastic and really good to see your colleagues here as well. Thank you all for that warm introduction when we arrived. Thank you for what you do, and thank you for being here this morning. We want to do a lot of work with you, and this is something the media will know. I said it many times in the election campaign. My dad was a tool maker. And he worked particularly with steel, as you do in tool making of the sort that he was doing. And so I love environments like this. This is what I grew up in, factories like this with my dad, doing the work that he did. Highly skilled, really important work, working with steel, the sorts of work that you're doing. I love being in these places. Thank you for giving up your time to listen to us this morning. I really, really appreciate it. And it's great to be in Runcorn. It's great to be here with Ed, the Energy Secretary, in the third week of this Labour government. It hardly seems possible that 3 weeks ago today, literally, we were still knocking on doors trying to persuade people to vote for us. And here we are, back to show that the work of change has already begun. And the hard graft of rebuilding this country has truly started. And it is vital that we begin immediately, because the last government dropped the ball. They left us the worst inheritance since the Second World War. And every day we're finding more mess that they've left for us to clear up. The rot of short-sightedness and self-service that has weakened the foundations of our country. We've started the rebuilding, but the problems that have been left to fester for years can't be cleared up overnight. And cast your minds back to 10 years ago, by way of example, when the Conservative government cut investment in clean British power. That impacts on your jobs. They told you that a clean energy future was possible as they blocked companies from building it. They offered the jobs of the future while they sat out the race. And that wasn't an oversight, it was an active choice. Another example of the chaos that characterised their government. A failure to serve our country, in my view. They banned onshore wind. Think of the impact that has had on your jobs. They slashed support for home insulation. They cut investment in renewables. And people have paid the price for their negligence. When Russia invaded Ukraine, we were left more exposed than other countries. And that meant Putin pushed our bills up. Every family and every business has felt the impact of that. We've lost a decade of opportunity, missed chances to boost our energy security, to cut bills and create good jobs. People up and down the country have literally paid the price of that short-sightedness. And we should be in no doubt, for as long as we remain reliant on foreign dictators for fossil fuels, this country will be exposed to future energy shocks like the one that we've just had. And as usual, it will be working people who are hit hardest in these crises. But now there is a massive prize within our reach. And make no mistake, the race is on to get there. Until now, I feel like we've been sort of tying up our laces in the changing room. No more. I don't just want to be in the race for clean energy. I want us to win the race for clean energy. And why not? We've got the potential, we've got the ports, we've got the people, the skills, and now we've got a mission-driven government determined to take advantage of these opportunities. So in week one of government, we lifted the ban on onshore wind. We committed to unblock solar power, begun solar rooftop revolution on new homes and businesses. And last week, we introduced a bill in the King's Speech to create Great British Energy, a publicly owned energy company making money for the taxpayer, creating the next generation of good jobs and taking Putin's boot off our throat once and for all, and doing our duty to the planet and to the next generation. So today I'm delighted to announce we've appointed Jürgen Meyer, who is here today with us, to chair Great British Energy. Jürgen, thank you so much for taking up this really important role. He brings huge credibility as the former chief executive of Siemens UK, one of the largest producers of turbines in this country. And as I was just saying, I visited Siemens in a number of places, in Crawley and in Glasgow. And when I did, I was really struck by the apprentices there, the young people that will be skilled up for the future. And I know that Jürgen will bring that experience to the success of GB Energy and, of course, to our nation. Because I've always been clear that mission-driven government, that's a government with a driving sense of purpose, knowing what it wants to achieve, making decisions that are measured in years, is all about partnerships, working together to deliver for the British people. So I'm delighted that Great British Energy, our new national institution, will be partnering with the Crown Estate. And I'm really pleased that we can make that announcement today and that Dan Labad is here with us from the Crown Estate. Now, this partnership will deliver, and it will deliver big. On the one hand, Great British Energy, at the heart of our industrial policy, with its own resources, and £8.3 billion to invest in the technologies of the future, floating wind, tidal power, nuclear and clean power projects across the UK. And on the other hand, the expertise of the Crown Estate, their ownership of the seabed, their £16 billion asset base, and the new borrowing and investment powers that we will give them. Together, they will work with the market, exploiting capabilities that only the government has and crowding in the very best from the private sector. Because this government isn't driven by ideology, but by our determination to deliver for the British people. So we will be pro-business, pro-worker and pro-wealth creation for all, maximising our assets rather than flogging them off to bring a better return for the taxpayer. And this new partnership, Great British Energy, the Crown Estate, will unleash a tidal wave of public and private investment to drive the low-carbon transition, create good, secure jobs and supply chains across Britain, fast-track energy projects already in the pipeline, and make the UK a world leader in the clean technologies of the future. Now, we owe that to the next generation. In Grimsby, I met apprentices working on offshore wind. Highly skilled young people, proud of the jobs that they were doing. They were maintaining the turbines out to sea on a 2-week rota. Really keen to play their part in the clean energy revolution. And there are apprentices like that, the next generation of jobs across the country. And this is key to the decade of national renewal that this country needs. Stewarding our energy resources for the benefit of the whole nation for years to come. Powering Britain from the seabeds of the North Sea to the Celtic Sea. And I want to be clear, we will work with our counterparts in Scotland every step of the way, as a grown-up government in the service of working people across the entire United Kingdom. Scotland will lead the clean energy revolution. GB Energy will be headquartered in Scotland. And I know everyone I speak to seems to have a good case for it being based in their town or city, but we're not going to announce that today. But I can confirm this. GB Energy will bring good jobs and long-term investment to our industrial hearts and coastal communities. You know how important that is to your jobs, the jobs of those that will come as apprentices and young people in the future in places like this. Those jobs, it will save families money and harness our national assets to deliver energy independence. Now, change on that scale will not happen overnight, but today we've taken that first step immediately, a down payment on our mission for clean power by 2030 and accelerating to net zero. We said we would set up Great British Energy, and we have. We said we would create good jobs and cut your bills, and we will. The race has started. The work has begun. The planet and the people of this country will reap the benefits for decades to come. Thank you very much for listening to me. I'm now going to take a number of questions from the media, but then I do want the opportunity to talk to some of you. So we'll get this out of the way first, and then we'll have the opportunity to talk. I want to hear your views, your perspective. Anything you want to talk to me and Ed about, please take that opportunity in just a moment. Let's do media first. I've got Simon Jack from the BBC. Simon.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Simon Jack, BBC News. What's your message to the 200,000 people who work in the oil and gas sector throughout the UK? The unions say they risk being the miners of their generation, and we've already seen investment walk away from domestic oil and gas resources here. And if I may ask a second one, what was your reaction to the pictures of the police officer clearly kicking and stamping on the head of a person in the prone position, and what is the right response to that?
Well, for those working in oil and gas, can I start by saying thank you for all the hard work that they have done on the energy that we've had in this country for many, many years. Second, that we will manage through this transition in a way that ensures we have the next generation of jobs and the generation after. Everybody knows that oil and gas will be part of the mix for many years to come. None of the licences that have been granted are going to be revoked or interfered with by us. But a transition is coming to renewables. Everybody knows that. Everybody in the sector knows that. And what you have with mission-driven government, purpose-driven government, is an absolute determination to see that as an opportunity and to manage that transition in a fair way, particularly for those that are working in oil and gas. The worst thing we could do, knowing that that transition is coming, because oil and gas is running out, the worst thing we could do is nothing, or to go slowly. Because we had a transition, you'll remember this, away from coal. And the government at the time did not do the forward planning for the next generation of jobs. And there are communities across the country still feeling the effects of that. I'm never going to let that happen under a Labour government. So we will work with all of those in the sector now, all of those who will continue to have the skilled jobs that we need in the places we need them. But the best thing we can do for jobs in this country, in the energy sector, is to seize this opportunity and work through it in a fair way. In relation to the footage emerging from Manchester that you mentioned in the second part of your question, look, I understand the public's concern. I've seen it myself and understand that concern. There have now been, I think, the suspension of one police officer this morning, and the Home Secretary is meeting the Mayor of Manchester to discuss this as we speak now. Thank you. I'll go to Shihab, please, from ITV.
Shihab Khan from ITV News. Prime Minister, can you guarantee that GB Energy will result in people's energy bills going down? And if so, when are you expecting that to happen? And a second question, if I may. There's an ITV documentary that airs tonight about unlawful press intrusion, which has renewed calls for a public inquiry. The father of Madeleine McCann has spoken to ITV News, in which he says it is critical that the government has the courage and integrity to keep its promises and proceed with the second half of the Leveson inquiry. Prime Minister, will you keep that promise? And what do you say to Jerry McCann and other victims?
Well, let me deal with the second part first. We've set out in our manifesto our programme for action for this government. We've laid that out in the King's speech. That clearly sets out our priorities. And the second half of Leveson is not among them. I've been clear that one of the purposes of mission-driven government is to be clear about what we can achieve, the time frame, the purpose we need to put to it, but also that it dictates our priorities in government. Given the mess that we've inherited, and we're finding more of it every day, it's really important that we keep to those priorities. In relation to bills, yes, this will drive down bills. This move to renewable energy has a number of material advantages because every family and every business has paid higher bills in energy in recent years because of the inaction of the last 10 years. So this will drive down bills. It gives us energy independence, because at the moment we're reliant on the international market. That means when you get issues like the invasion of Ukraine, that has an effect. That's why bills have gone up, and it's been worse in this country than in other countries. So it gives us that security, and it also gives us the next generation of jobs, but it will push bills down, and that's the sort of number one issue behind renewables. Bills will go down, and not for a short time, but actually permanently. And for every family and every business across the country, that is hugely important. Thank you. I'll go to Tom at Sky.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Tom Clark, Sky News. On that point, even with the measures you brought in today, big offshore wind farms are still going to take years to develop. There's hundreds of billions of pound investment needed to get to your 2030 low-carbon energy targets, but just £8.3 billion in GB Energy. Can you be at all confident in your pledge to voters that you will lower their bills in the short term?
Yes, and I'll tell you for why. The money that's going into GB Energy is intended to be a catalyst for private investment, and the partnership that we've announced today with the Crown Estate, I think, will give great confidence to investors about the determination that we have, the speed at which we're willing to take decisions. And this is a historic partnership. This has never been done before. It's a real game changer, and here we are 3 weeks into a Labour government making that announcement today. Look, it will take time for this to develop. It will take time before we're able to get the benefits from clean power, but that's why we're moving at pace, because the inaction of the last 10 years has cost every family and every business. So we need to move at pace to get those bills down. But I think today this announcement is a historic announcement. I think it will give great confidence to the private sector to come up alongside a mission-driven government, a purpose-driven government, a government, if I may say so, with a mandate strong enough to take decisions that are measured in years, not months. That's been a huge problem of the last 14 years, but the last 8 years in particular, with a strong sense of industrial strategy and a fundamental belief that we should own and make things in Britain. I think everybody here would agree with that sentiment, that we have the capability, we've got the skills, we've got the workforce, we've got the talent. Let's own more and make more in Britain. Thank you very much. Catherine, GB News.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Catherine Forster, GB News. You see green technology as a huge opportunity for growth, for jobs, for energy security. I've asked about bills a little bit, but for ordinary families, obviously this is going to take many years. Can you tell us specifically, will people start to see a drop in their bills in this Parliament, and if so, by how much, or will it take longer than that? Thank you.
Oh, we certainly want to get those bills down in this Parliament, and every step we take, that's all, we've already announced what we're going to do in relation to solar energy, to onshore wind. Today, obviously, the announcement we're making about GB Energy. Each of these steps will bring down bills. The timing will depend on the implementation, but the fact that within 3 weeks we've already taken some of the key decisions allows us to move at pace. So I want to see those bills go down in this Parliament. We've made that pledge. That's what we intend to do. And it is really important because so many people have been hammered by their energy bills in the last few years. Talk to any business up and down the country and ask them, what's your number one challenge? And I'd put money these days on most of them saying, it's my energy bill, it's far too high, I need to get it down. And families have struggled with their energy bills and therefore have to make difficult choices about what else they do. But look, it is about making these decisions early on. We have, I think in the first 3 weeks now, shown a real intent to make the change that's necessary to get those bills down. Thank you so much. I've got Rob from ITV Granada.
Thank you, Prime Minister, and good morning. A question on the incident at Manchester Airport. Prime Minister, you know the law and order system in this country better than most people in this country. Former Director of Public Prosecutions, your government now leads
It's not me.
on...
It's not me.
Joy when the phone rings. Your government now shapes that very system. You've seen that video of that police officer. What do you say to other people who have seen it, who are now questioning their trust in that law and order system? People like those protesting in Rochdale last night, raising issues and concerns about institutional racism and police brutality.
Well, I have seen the footage, and for that reason, I do understand the public concern. Obviously, action has now been taken in relation to the suspension of an officer, and the Home Secretary is already having those discussions with the Mayor of Manchester. I think they've already happened, or they're taking place as we speak, and she has made sure that she's kept updated on developments ever since the incident. And so, obviously, there's a process now that will go into place, but I completely understand the public concern, having seen the footage myself. Thank you. I've got Max from the Times.
Prime Minister Max Candex at the Times. In the last 35 years, there have only been 2 site licences granted to build new nuclear plants, and in one of those cases, the funding is still up in the air. The previous government set an ambition of building a new nuclear reactor every year. Is that also your ambition?
Nuclear is very much part of the mix as we go forward, and we will be pushing hard on it. I've already had discussions with the Energy Secretary about how we can speed up when it comes to nuclear. I have to say, as we've found in other departments, I'm pretty appalled at what we're finding in the decisions of the previous government in terms of the speed of projects, the lack of thinking through of how quickly projects can be delivered, and the funding that's been put behind them. We will clear that up, and we'll move this on, because nuclear is very much part of the energy mix as we go forward. And the task I've set the Energy Secretary is to take such steps as are necessary to make sure this is delivered faster and more efficiently, and to do that as quickly as possible. Thank you. Emma from the Telegraph. Emma.
Thank you, Prime Minister. During the election campaign, Labour suggested bills would be brought down around £300 a year by 2030 by your net zero energy plans. Do you stand by that figure? How much can households expect to save?
Yes, I do. I stand by everything in our manifesto, and one of the things I made clear in the election campaign is that I wouldn't make a single promise or commitment that I didn't think we could deliver in government. And that's why we carefully costed and funded everything in our manifesto. That does depend on early, firm decisions being made, which is why we've set up GB Energy, why we've announced the partnership today with the Crown Estate, and why the Energy Secretary has already taken action in week 1 in relation to onshore wind, in relation to solar energy, and also pushing on with nuclear. So I stand by that commitment. What this brings us is lower bills, energy security, the next generation of jobs, and, of course, an important contribution to our obligations in relation to the planet. Thank you. Peter from The Guardian.
Hi.
Peter.
Yeah, thanks. It's one thing to get the wind turbines built, but something that often kind of slows this down is transporting the electricity across the country. People get bogged down in these planning battles. At Prime Minister's questions yesterday, you were quite scathing towards Adrian Ramsey, the Greens co-leader, for the fact that he's opposed overhead lines in the area that he represents. Can you guarantee you'll be that tough on Labour councillors or Labour MPs who take a similar NIMBY-ish attitude? And will you guarantee that if it has to be done, then all this electricity from these new plants will be brought overground rather than much more expensive and slower undersea or underground?
We will take the tough decisions to make this work, because it's the failure to take the tough decisions and the running away from tough decisions that has caused over a decade of lost opportunity. So we'll take those tough decisions. That will include decisions on planning, where we intend to make the necessary changes, and that will apply everywhere, whatever the rosette on the constituency, because we have to move this forward. And I've given this example before, but I'll give it again because it certainly brings it home. When I was preparing for government, I went through with those that know what they're talking about, including CEOs of energy companies, how quickly an onshore wind farm could be built. The answer to that is, on the engineering, the skills side, about 2 years. But unless we change things, it then takes 13 years before we get any power, because you lose 5 years in planning, another 5, 6, 7 years to get the grid to connect. We are not going to go on like that. We're not going to go on like that. We will take the tough decisions to cut through that. And so, yes, that's the approach that we've set out. Yes, I think we've shown already our mettle in relation to this, and we'll press on with the planning aspects just as quickly and just as determinedly as we pressed on with creating GB Energy in the first place. I've got Sophie from the Mirror. Sophie.
Hi, Sophie Huskisson from the Mirror. Should people in Britain ditch their gas boilers? And if so, how will you help them do that?
Well, I'm not going to tell people what to do with their boilers. This is not about bearing down on individuals and imposing a disproportionate burden on them. I don't think that's the way that we take anybody through a transition. So this is not about a government that's going to go around the country saying you can do this, you can't do that. That isn't the way to bring about the transition. The best way, I think, is to ensure that we put in place the difficult decisions to make sure that renewable energy is a reliable source of energy and meet our mission, which is to have clean power by 2030. And the best selling point, if you like, for that, for the general public, is that their bills will go down, and they will go down not just for a short time, but for the long term. And that will come as a huge relief, I think, to families and businesses across the country. Thank you all very much. And now we get the opportunity to talk to you, which I'm very much looking forward to. Thank you.